Marietta to have time for her presentation and to be able to field questions. She's always so popular. As most of you are aware, this is Marietta Parrish. She's been with us several years, and we are always glad to have Marietta back with us. She's a board-certified registered dietitian, exercise physiologist, and endurance athlete. Told me this morning she has just had her fourth baby 6 weeks ago. So she's here, and we appreciate her coming out to do this for us, committing to do this for us several months ago. So she also took our topic this month and took it back, and the Predators are actually studying the same thing you are, so that's kind of a neat segue. So she's graduated from Lipscomb University and completed a residency through the National Healthcare Corporation. After working in clinical and community nutrition for a decade, she combined her passion for nutrition and exercise and the practice of sports nutrition, one of the fastest growing fields across the globe, and Nashville athletes had not had access to a dedicated board-certified sports specialist dietitian prior to this. She has assumed that role and promotes the growth of sports nutrition. As a specialist in this area, she provides safe, effective, evidence-based nutrition services that include an assessment, nutrition diagnosis, intervention, counseling, and follow-up evaluations. These services are available to sports organizations as well as physically active individuals and groups. She specializes in applying the science of sports nutrition to fuel fitness and performance. She also provides personalized sports medical nutrition therapy for special populations. The therapies pertain to bone mineral disturbances, cardiovascular conditions, diabetes, disabled athletes, eating disorders, female athlete triad, food allergies, wound and injury healing, gastrointestinal disorders, high blood pressure, iron deficiency, anemia, and weight or body composition management. Marietta's objectives are to enhance the performance, health, and longevity of individuals that range from the weekend warrior to the professional athlete with focus, food, and fitness. Join me in welcoming Marietta, please.
So I was excited about the topic this month, and as we just heard, I'm having the Predators focus on it this month too. We kind of focus on a different topic every month, and come January, we're right at the midway point of our season, and the guys are kind of getting in a slump. Unfortunately, they get a break at the end of the month, the All-Star break, but this is really was good timing. So I thought, you know what, we're just going to do this for everyone. So we're going to be really talking about mood and food today. I think we all get that feelings and food are associated, but we want to talk more about that association and what does it mean. So for instance, we certainly know that our feelings affect our food choices. Something happened with our slide there, but it says celebrate. So for instance, we just came off quite a few celebrations likely that involved food. So we know food and feelings are closely coupled. Certainly, there are many celebratory foods that we have certain emotions tied to. So for instance, as we thought about Christmas coming, we just got through the holiday season, and many of you might have celebrated Christmas or Hanukkah. You probably have foods that you look forward to every year. Does anyone have those certain foods that they really look forward to, that they only eat that time of year? Go ahead, yeah. Name some of them. Let's hear some of them. You have one?
Turkey and dressing.
Turkey and dressing, okay. And you know, it's funny, yeah, most people don't eat that other times of year. So when you think about something like that, like the turkey and dressing, or for me, we always had my grandmother's tea ring on Christmas, and now I make it for the family now that she's passed away, or her little chocolates. But when you have foods like that, there's usually a feeling that's associated with it, whether it's joy or happiness or comfort or things of that nature. We get that. It can also be negative. You can always see if it's chicken on the table and you're like, chicken again, you know. So we definitely have feelings that are associated with food, but we're not so focused on those foods right now and the feelings that they bring up, because that's going to really be different from individual to individual. What we're going to focus more on is how, again, our slides are messed up a little bit. Y'all just pretend like, for some reason, that the words are all on the same level. We're going to talk more about how food and feelings is coupled. So in other words, there aren't specific foods that you can eat that are going to make you feel a certain way. Yes, certain foods do have powers. There are certain foods like dark chocolate that are going to boost endorphins. And we all know that boosting endorphins is obviously going to make you feel energetic, more excited, better, happier. That's true. But there's nothing really that you can eat that's going to be powerful enough that you're going to feel it like this. For instance, caffeine, right? Like if you, especially if you're sensitive to caffeine, you don't usually have it, and you have some, you're all of a sudden going to feel more alert. If you have too much, you could feel jittery. Yes, that's something that you have a measurable feeling from. But what I'm saying is, for most foods, that's not the case. You're not going to eat something and then instantly feel a certain way. It's not going to bring on that food. But we like to think of that way. For instance, aphrodisiacs, that's something that's been around for years. You look back at ancient times, you can go way back in history and look at some of the most ancient beliefs about food and the feelings that they elicited. And aphrodisiacs were the prime example that you're going to see in history as far as that goes. But again, eating most certain foods are not powerful enough to really cause particular feelings. Really what we're looking for is how do everything that we eat have an effect on our feelings. In other words, how we feel in and out each and every day. And believe it or not, they do have a big feeling. So here you see a quote from Super Size Me. This is an old documentary. It's old now. Food documentaries are trendy still. And they're powerful, and that's one reason they're trendy. But this was one of the original, and it was pretty powerful. Did anyone ever watch Super Size Me? Get into it? You did? Did it have any impact on your thoughts? Not really? Yeah, anything surprising? Anyone else watch it? Okay, so probably most of us, if we didn't watch it, though, were somewhat familiar with it. And it was where a guy signed up to eat McDonald's, and every time he went through, if they offered to supersize it, then he would. And he's like, that's just what I'm going to eat. So he did. So you can see that he claims that one of the big claims in the movie was halfway through, he realized he was getting headaches, that he was feeling depressed, his energy was so low, and it was a result of the change in his diet from eating this fast food. So, that was probably on the more, I guess, in the forefront of media really talking about, hey, you know what? Our food really affects the way we feel. It's not just a health standpoint or whether we're fat or we're thin. It really affects the way that we feel. And that can have a profound impact on your day-to-day activities. So one of the big feelings that he claims from that diet and that many of us struggle with is fatigue. It's one of the most common complaints that doctors get, and it's probably one of the things that you found yourself complaining more of is, why am I so tired? And certainly what we do know is what you eat does have a big impact on your energy levels or fatigue levels. And that's important because if you're feeling fatigued all the time, that's not really a get out there and fight mode. That's not really a let me be productive mode, right? It's not really the mood that we want our employees to be in or that we really ourselves want to be in, especially if you have a lot of responsibility. The last thing you want to do is feel fatigued. So it certainly has an impact. And that goes for the same thing with my athletes. Like I said, working with the Predators. We know they're halfway through the season. We know they're physically fatigued. But we have to say, hey, let's not get sloppy with our food because we have to remember that what they're eating is going to impact the way they feel, and that's going to impact the way they attack their game. So they are highly related. We didn't need the documentary to tell us all this, by the way. Here's the next one, probably a lot of us can relate to, hangry. That's kind of a newer word that's come into the scene. A couple years ago it was officially added to the dictionary, and probably several of us have found ourselves using that word. Having a 6-week-old baby, she's definitely hangry a lot. Every 2 to 3 hours she lets me know about it, which is very kind of her, and I'm sure that will continue her whole life. So these are feelings that, again, we didn't need a documentary, we didn't need the dictionary, we didn't need them to tell us that, wow, our food is affecting the way that we feel. So let's talk about some of these ways that we can avoid these types of feelings. One is by making sure that you have adequate calories. So if you are under eating, anyone ever tried to lose weight and your spouse or loved one was like, eat this donut, I'm so tired of being around you, you're crabby? Anyone? No one wants to admit to it, perhaps? It's funny, my pediatrician recently, I was talking with him, and he's vegetarian, and he said, we were talking about my baby's colicky, and I said, everything I read says give up dairy, but I said, let me tell you, it's going to be a long year for that baby to cry because I'm not giving up dairy. You know, and he was like, oh, you shouldn't anyway. And he's like, but one time I tried that. And I was like, how'd that go for you? And he proceeded to tell me that his wife walked up to him with some cheese pizza and was like, eat this, I can't deal with you anymore. So, we probably have similar stories. And I said, yeah, I get that for sure. But eating adequate calories and making sure, again, if you're losing weight, it can be hard to control your mood, and you know this one. But this is one way we can ensure that we're staying in a more positive mood. If we're not starving ourselves, if we're not going long lapses without eating, more accidents happen. You probably, when you get home from work, you're tired, yes, but you're also hungry, a lot of us are, and you're probably more likely to snap at whoever's in your house or in your way or on the road, or et cetera. So anytime that we go more than about 3 to 4 hours without eating, our blood sugar starts to get low, and we're going to be more prone to not be quite as energetic or joyful. Research shows we're more likely to be hangry, as we saw the previous word. So eating balanced meals is the next thing that's really going to affect our mood. So you can see that there's a lot of interest right now, especially in the ketogenic diet, for instance. But you can see on the slide that it talks about if you have too little or too much carbohydrate, you're going to get fatigued. But hands down, and this was one of the things on our Predators Instagram account this month that we were pushing was, hey, you need carbohydrate and you need more than the regular public. And if you don't get it, you're going to be fatigued. So ketogenic diet, not great for majority of athletes. It has its place and purpose, but one of the things you need to know if you're gung-ho and choose to follow it is you're going to feel fatigued, especially the first 2 weeks, but even after that. And I address that just because it seems to be still the most prevalent or most popular diet right now. And in the beginning of the year, being January, people are probably thinking about some diets, and we can certainly talk about keto more. But anytime you're not getting enough carbohydrate, you're going to feel fatigued. So I know there's a lot of negative messages out there about carbohydrates and in limiting them. So obviously what we need to know is you need to eat the right type of carbohydrates, and it needs to be combined with protein. So when we look at the right type of carbohydrate, obviously we want to get ones that contain fiber. You want to get them from fruits and vegetables. One reason that carbohydrates are so important is not just so that we don't have a lapse in energy, but one of the things which we're going to focus on here in the next slide, and you can see here, is carbohydrates are really important for serotonin production. You've probably heard that word before. It's a neurotransmitter, and it is directly related to your feeling of happiness. So here we go, talking about that. So as far as gut microbes go, or your microbiota in your intestines, or your good or bad bacteria, you've heard a lot about this topic. It seems to be an area, if you're not aware, that we continue to discover a lot of growth in as far as the way it impacts our health. But now we're deciding it's not just health it's impacting. We're finding that the bacteria in your intestines also has a profound impact on your mood. So some people might just be happier because they have better bacteria in their gut. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? But when you can consider, and that's kind of small print up there, but you can see 95% of your serotonin is produced in your GI tract. And it's influenced by the type of bacteria that's in your gut. And serotonin's directly responsible for helping regulate your sleep, your appetite. It helps mediate your moods, and it helps with pain control as well. So it's a pretty big neurotransmitter that has a lot of jobs that really are going to impact the way you feel. And it's directly related to, again, there's 95% of it is produced in your GI tract. So having the right type of microbes or good bacteria in your intestines is going to be really important for your mood. This, again, is one of the big growing areas right now that they're exploring more. And it was kind of a surprise to see that relationship. It's only been the last couple years, even though we knew that's the way serotonin was produced, that they're coming in with scientific evidence that's actually measuring, yes, people who have more of this type of bacteria have better moods. And now they're trying to go in and say, hey, how can we supplement probiotics to help people who might be depressed or who might struggle more with feeling down. But they do indeed show, and you'll see this on the next page, that people who supplement probiotics do report less depression. And so that's pretty significant. And it's not just a little bit less, it's a significant difference. So that might be something that you can consider. But even if you don't want to supplement probiotics, you may just change the way you diet. And again, this has to do with carbohydrates, which is what we're really talking about right now, and why they have an impact on your diet, and why, if you follow some of the diets that cut out carbohydrates, you may be impacting more than you think. So when we talk about carbohydrates and the good types, as we said, and we're on the previous slide just talking about the good versus the bad carbohydrates, you saw the good ones I mentioned had fiber, is coming from a lot of fruits and vegetables. Well, those types of carbohydrates that have the good types of fiber and that come from fruits and vegetables are going to be the type that are going to produce the good type of bacteria in your intestines. So when you're thinking about the diets that are best for you and the one that's going to make you feel the happiest or the most productive or the most energetic, having one that's going to be heavy in fruits and vegetables is going to be what's most effective. And it's for several reasons why. So again, this is a message that if you've come in January and you've heard me talk before, this is the same message. It's just a different spin on it. You've got to get more fruits and vegetables in your diet. And this time you're hearing it's because they equal happy. And that's pretty amazing. You may not feel happy for some of you when you eat it, but eventually you'll be happy. So here we're looking at some of the most common mental disorders in our country, and you can see that I've bolded depression at the top. There's 4 that are the top, and this is, I should mention, this is not our country. These are the 4 most common worldwide. And so I bolded depression just because it is so impacted by what's in our diet. So you can see to the side there, I've pulled out some of the major things that you can see: omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B, magnesium, low-carb diets, zinc. And so all having inadequate levels of any of those, whether it's carbs, omega-3, vitamin B, magnesium, zinc, are all going to link to depression. So those are all things that come in your diet or that you can attack with a supplement if necessary, that can help raise your level. And considering how prevalent depression is, it is very significant. We are realizing that, yeah, hey, maybe pills, maybe therapy are important, but also we need to be addressing this from a nutrition standpoint, that what you're eating is having a huge impact. And one of the reasons we think that we're seeing an increase, which it says the first line there, an increase in the amount of depression, is we think, especially in our Western countries, is our decline in omega-3 or the type of fatty, essential fatty acid that you get primarily in fish. So we're seeing a decline in that, and we're linking it to a rise in depression. So here are some other key vitamins that are going to also support your mood. You can see here we've called out vitamin D, folate, and B12. So these are more B vitamins, and then selenium, which is an additional one. And then it just has some different sources of each one. So vitamin D is another vitamin that seems to be the super duper vitamin that we're finding just seems to have an effect on everything. And it does. It's vitamin D is more like a hormone than a vitamin. So it's acts a little bit differently in your body than, say, a vitamin B6. And it just has to do with the nature or the chemistry of it, and it is more like a hormone. So it's not surprising that it's impacting so many different things in our body. But vitamin D, I would say vitamin D and your good or bad bacteria in your intestines are two of the biggest areas that we're finding have an impact on a host of different things in your body. But definitely your mood is one of the biggest. So most of us are deficient in vitamin D. 66% of Americans are deficient in vitamin D. And you can get this tested in your blood, but if you aren't having it tested, we recommend that prophylactically you take about 2,000 international units, supplement that in vitamin D, and that's because you don't get it in a lot of foods. There are some foods listed there, but our main source we rely on is sunlight. But you have to have a majority of your body exposed to the sun for at least 30 minutes in order daily to get your vitamin D. Most of us aren't going to do that. Most of us don't have time to do that. Most of us, especially in this weather, don't. That's not interesting for us to do. No, thank you. So this is an area that we do really recommend supplements. We always want to do a food first approach, but again, it looks like with vitamin D, the way to go might be to supplement whether you know your level or not on a regular basis. And one reason of the host of many reasons we're finding with vitamin D is your mood. So vitamin D's main role is converting and regulating the conversion of tryptophan into serotonin. So we go back to the serotonin, and that's why vitamin D specifically has an effect on mood. It's because it's impacting the conversion into serotonin from tryptophan. And I just want to emphasize the key is to not have deficiencies in this area. So it's not like taking more vitamin D or more selenium or more vitamin B12 is going to boost your mood more. That's not how it works. But if you are struggling with a mood disorder or a problem with your mood, chances are you could be deficient. And if you are deficient and you raise your levels by supplementing, you would see a noticeable impact. So avoiding deficiencies is the key. It's not that you're going to see a boost from getting these above and beyond if you already are fine. So next we want to really look at a bit what has a big impact are whole foods. So in other words, we see that people, if you have a food sensitivity, or an allergy definitely, but a sensitivity, and you eat a food that you're sensitive to, you might have kind of an odd feeling of fatigue, or you might feel like, why am I so tired all of a sudden? And one of the foods that we see that causes that more often are nitrates, which you're going to see a lot in your deli meats. So if you're sensitive to those, then you might eat something like deli meat and like, why am I feeling so sluggish? Oh, it's just because it's after lunch. Well, it may not be just the time of day. It may be actually what you ate. And then, of course, we see eating processed foods compared to more whole foods are going to lead to a higher rate of depression as well. So eating processed foods, certainly in things that have preservatives like nitrates, are going to lead to feeling more down and possibly depression, fatigue, and possibly depression. So anyone in here do a detox diet to start the new year? Want to admit to it? Okay, a lot of people are really into them. They've been around for a while. It's nothing new. I mean, you could say they could be tied back to the ancient times in the Bible, if you will, and fasting. And some of them seem just silly. You could make up your own detox diet because it's essentially cutting out a host of things and only focusing on a limited number of things. So whether you're just doing juices, or whether you're just doing Cheetos or the cabbage soup diet, was really a form of detox, if you will. What we find, and you can see that's stated here, is there's really no benefit from them. There's no evidence that really suggests that there's any cleansing or removing toxins from your body or improving your health. That's the bottom line when it comes to detox diets. Where the benefit may lie if you chose to do a 3-day detox juice diet or follow something like that may be mental. So what we're seeing that research suggests is that the power in detox diets may be that, or the seduction of doing a detox diet may be in their promise of purification or redemption. So think about that a minute. It's the truth. When you do a detox diet, do you not feel somewhat redeemed or purified? It's mental. But that can go a long way. So sometimes, even as a health professional, even though I know these detox diets really aren't doing anything for you, sometimes the mental boost you get could be worth it. It could be appropriate. It may be the stepping stone or the platform, the diving board, which you need to launch into your new healthy eating habits, or maybe to make a clean break from, say, the holidays and what you've been eating, and to go forward on getting your act back together. So they have their place, but you need to know if you're choosing to do one, it's up here. That's why you're doing it. It's not having a physical benefit for your body in any way. Not what evidence shows, but it may have a good mental impact that could be effective for whatever you're trying to achieve. So hydration is certainly another area of our nutrition that's going to impact the way that we feel. Our energy levels definitely are going to be impacted. Dehydration is one of the number one reasons that people complain of fatigue, and that's something they can easily counteract. So if you're feeling tired in the afternoon, reaching for 20 ounces, 16 or 20 ounces of fluid may be the pick-me-up that you needed, maybe not that coffee. When you get the coffee, it may not be the caffeine that so much gave you that perk. It may be the fact that you're getting fluids and you needed them. So all fluids can count towards your hydration goals. So reaching for fluid and making sure you have enough is certainly going to help you in your energy levels. This is something, again, with my athletes and even the predators that I emphasize with them. When we get to this time of year, I say, okay, let's re-up our hydration regimen. Let's really focus on, when I wake up, I'm gonna go ahead and down 20 ounces, and then I'm gonna have another 12 with breakfast, and then in the car on the way to the rink, I'm gonna have another 20, and then when I get to the rink, I'm gonna have, and we just try to set up a schedule like that, especially when they're traveling. They just came off a big road trip, a huge road trip. It was their biggest of the year. And especially when they're flying and going here and there and their schedule's off, we really emphasize finding a regimen. And I encourage that for you guys. When you know you're going to be entering a more stressful time that maybe is outside of your normal schedule, really focus on upping your hydration regimen and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and think about where I can plug in this extra fluid, because it's going to help you power through that time. It's going to help keep you energized. It's going to help you avoid fatigue. Again, the hydration, but also combining it with adequate carbs, the right type, and making sure you're not going 3 to 4 hours. That's going to be key in helping you feel good, giving you the right onset of your mood that you need to deal with the stress that you're dealing with. So when we're talking about hydration, we do need to mention alcohol, which can have an impact on your feeling. So it's going to impact everyone differently, and the amount you have is going to have a different impact. So initially, short-term or an acute effect from alcohol, it can be an upper or a downer. It really just depends on what's going on with you and how your relationship is with alcohol. So you can see some of the different feelings that it can elicit. But what we know is it may make you feel good in the moment, but if you have it, like say in the evening after 5 o'clock, if you have any amount of alcohol, it's going to interrupt your sleep patterns. Any amount. So even if you have a tolerance, even if you think like, no, alcohol helps me go to sleep, again, that's a short-term effect and may make you feel drowsy or relaxed, but ultimately it's interrupting your sleep. Why is that significant to talking about how it affects your feelings? I don't even think I need to say that. How many of us are very good when we have interrupted sleep? How many of us feel happy, energetic, able to focus on our A game when we've been sleep deprived or had interrupted sleep? So alcohol is going to impact your sleep quality. And sleep is really important. Hopefully you guys know it's the foundation of your health. That's really when your body heals. It's when it recovers. It's when all the improving and the healing happens asleep. That's one reason it's so important when you're out injured or you've had surgery that you're resting, that you're getting adequate sleep, is because that's when that recovery process comes. And that's true for us that are healthy on an everyday basis. So I'm not saying never have alcohol, but I'm saying if it's something you're regularly having, it may be having an impact. You may think, no, I sleep just fine, but it is affecting your sleep quality if you have any amount. And that can in turn affect your mood and what happens there. So when we look at food and how it relates to our feelings. It's more than eating certain foods. It begins with following basic nutrition strategies. The type of calories, the timing of meals, the balance, avoiding deficiencies. That's really the key to mastering your mood and your food. All right, guys, any questions? I want to take them now. They don't have to be related to food and mood, but we did cover a lot of different areas. So if you have questions, whether it's about detox or ketogenic diets or anything else, I'm happy to go ahead and take them now for a few minutes before you get back to work.
So you are saying that iced tea, you're counting that as
Hydration?
hydration?
Yeah, specifically, absolutely. So caffeine does not have a diuretic effect and go against our hydration until you exceed 400 milligrams. So to put that in perspective, tea has about less than half the caffeine of a cup of coffee. So a cup of coffee might have 100 milligrams if it's strongly brewed. And so tea is going to have about 40 to 50, similar to a Coke. So it's not very much caffeine that it has, and you have to have 400 before it goes against your hydration. So yeah, it counts, and that's the good news for most of us. Yeah, alcohol on the other hand, if it's exceeding more than 7% alcohol, it's going against your hydration. So most of us are having something if they're having alcohol with more than 7% alcohol in it. Yeah. Any other questions? I don't. My diet is so diverse with prebiotic foods, the fibers and the vegetables. I'm vegetarian, so full disclosure, and I have been most of my life just because I don't like meat and love vegetables. And so I'm eating my 3 to 4 cups of vegetables a day, so I'm getting a lot of that fiber. I mean, almost really too much, for the average person. So the average female needs about 25 grams, male's about 35. And if you're getting that and it's coming from fruits and vegetables, not a fiber bar or something weird like that, even though they're putting that stuff in fortified foods now, then I don't take one. But my daughter, that's 6 weeks old, she's getting a probiotic. So they found, and this is kind of interesting on that topic, and I posted it on the Predators thing as well, talking about it this month, that's the only evidence-based treatment they have found for colic in babies is probiotics. And because it was the first thing that they found effective, and it was so significantly effective, Gerber bought the Swedish company that did the research and made the product. And it's one particular strain of probiotics. And when we say probiotics, there's a host of strains out there. So you can't just say, I'm taking a probiotic, and you have to say, what am I taking it for? And then get the proper probiotic. So for this one particular probiotic, of course, they have a patent or whatever on it protected, but they make it, and I give it to her. So she gets her little probiotic drops. Most kids outgrow it 4 to 6 months, and they think one reason why is because they're getting more probiotics from the mother. But now you can put the right type in. So I don't take them, but my daughter does. I probably should. My kids do get some as well because they are not great vegetable eaters, which is terrible, but happens. But I recommend it for our pro athletes, especially during the season. There's so many benefits from it, from their immune system, specifically that have been found with pro athletes. So I do recommend it for a lot of people, especially if their diet doesn't support it or if they're trying to treat something above and beyond. The colic drops, so it's Lactobacillus rhueteri, Rhueteri. Yeah, that's the particular one there. And if I look back on my notes here, I can tell you I wrote down the ones that they specific for mood and depression. They put on here. At least I think I did. Well, I might find them for you later. They're in my notes here. But they're, here we are, Lactobacillus and then bifidobacteria. So those are the two specific strains. Nobody cares about that unless you're looking at probiotics. But if you are and you care, those are the two most effective. And of course, the Lactobacillus is probably the most common they found effective for treating a majority of things. So if you're going to err on, could I just get one strain and supplement it, that would be, I would go for that one in particular. They do. I mean, you can get some that have tons of strains, but most people can't tolerate it, at least for a while.
There's lots of probiotics brand that we can rely on, that it has what they say it has?
I know, right? So ones that are NSF certified, you can rely on, they're going to have exactly what they say they have. So that usually, they're changing the look of it, but it has been, and it still is, I think, for, not for sport, but if it's just NSF certified for public, it's a blue seal and it has white letters and it will say NSF. And it will be on the front part of the bottle. And companies pay a lot of money for that third-party certification. And it's for that reason. It's saying, hey, you can count on exactly what we say is in here, is the right potency, purity, and that's what it's offered. So we always recommend, if you can, again, you're gonna pay more for them, but it's worth it. Certainly anything I'm gonna supplement myself, I'm looking for NSF certified products. So it's a good question.
How do you feel about vitamins? I mean, a lot of people talk about multivitamins, take certain vitamins, don't take them every day. How do you feel about that?
So what's interesting is, like we sit here and we talk about how all these vitamins can impact you and help you, and you can get lots of anecdotal claims from people on how they felt taking their vitamins. But we have more multivitamin supplementation tied to a higher comorbidity rate or death rate. And so then you kind of go, wait a minute, how are we supposed to interpret this research, which is often the case with nutrition? So we don't necessarily see that supplementing a multivitamin is doing any good for majority of people's health. What we do know, though, is if you have a deficiency, it is going to help. And then you do need to supplement. But if you're getting most of what you need in your diet, you're not deficient, then it probably is not going to do much good. Now, that's where the gray lies, is understanding deficiency versus not enough. So in other words, again, this goes back to the majority of Americans, over 60% of us also, as I said with vitamin D, it was 66%. Well, another 60 to almost 70% aren't getting enough potassium in their diet because we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. Even though we're not eating the amount we need, we're not necessarily deficient. So we're not eating the amount we need to achieve certain health, but we're not necessarily deficient. There's a difference. So a lot of the benefits, like we're talking about here, you're only going to get if you're deficient. So vitamin D, on the other hand, is one that we are deficient in. And so most of us do need to supplement that. But potassium, most of us aren't deficient. We're just not eating as much as we should eat. Do you see the difference there? So supplementing a multivitamin is going to be helpful if you're deficient. But it's not going to be helpful for most of us. Most of us in America are well nourished. So we don't necessarily need a multivitamin. It's not going to give us a boost above and beyond anything, or most vitamins. And you can test, and find out if you're deficient. You can do that at home these days. You can send in a kit online if you want it even. They make it easy. I don't think most of us need to do that, though.
But if you're sick and taking more vitamin C, does that help?
No. In fact, we're seeing more negative outcomes related to supplementing more vitamin C. Vitamin C is a very powerful antioxidant. It's one of the most powerful. And that's good because it's repairing cellular damage. So you would think, like, why wouldn't I take vitamin C? It's going to boost my immune system and do all these things, but we find it doesn't. Because it is so powerful when you're supplementing it exogenously, you're taking it, the vitamin C kind of doesn't allow your body to do the work that it should. So you have a weaker immune system. You don't respond as well to even your exercise. So we're saying supplement vitamin C when you feel like you're getting sick, and then do it for an acute time, a short time. So if you feel like, I'm coming down with an upper respiratory infection or a virus, then it might be helpful to supplement the vitamin C short term. But supplementing it, especially in large doses, it's not healthy. And in fact, a lot of people who supplement high doses of vitamin C, and it's in everything, that's one of the big causes of heartburn, and people don't link it to that. They think they just have it for a host of other reasons, and if we look back and take that out, they're like, wow, that's a big one.
What's the best way to recover from a dose of antibiotics? I know that destroys all your gut.
It does. I really like kefir, which is like a milk drink, if you can stomach it. It's a probiotic drink, but they have a host of other probiotic drinks out there. Good Belly's another one, but I would get probiotics for sure. I would drink them, or I mean, you can resume your healthy diet, but I would probably immediately supplement some if I had to do antibiotics.
Yeah, I try to eat a lot of cabbage afterwards. They say that's
Yes,
good.
that's really effective. Or Jerusalem artichoke is one or leeks is one of the highest ones to affect it. Yeah, cabbage is good. Again, that's good, and it's going to be a slow rebuilding process, but I would probably go ahead and get a fermented or a product that has probiotics in it. Good question. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day today.